Yeah, I told him very late. So are you going to be here for a while, or?
What did you have in mind?
I'm very late. I have like
Oh, wow.
this second. So I guess I'll see you guys Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Very
All right.
cool.
Okay,
Good night,
take care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Special victims, SVU.
I used to. I'm more into the original Law and Order.
Yeah.
Special victims, I get tired of hearing the word rape.
Yeah. And there's a lot of violation of police procedure. You know, if someone you're involved with was accused of rape, the cops come to your place. Like again, in here, we're talking to her, like, oh, this guy's cheating on you, and she tells him everything. That's kind of stuff to avoid. I think the first step is to be aware of it. It sounded kind of interesting.
Yeah.
What did you buy?
I bought the book that I did the cover for. I bought a copy of Karen's Closet. I was telling Chris that this lady I stayed with for a week in Portland. She'd asked me, like, why don't you like pigs? Why don't you like hogs? And I didn't tell her about the story, which you have not read yet, right? Okay. Pigs are not pleasant in this story. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
And she had a pet pig that her evil, drug-addicted boyfriend slaughtered. She came home to see the pig hanging from the random. And I told her before visiting her I don't eat pork. and partly because of that story. Okay. So I bought a copy to give to her as her holiday present, saying, now when you read this, you'll understand why I don't eat pork and why I don't like pigs. Karen's Closet.
That's kind of, I don't know, kind of dry.
It is.
Mildly.
It's kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
bad caverns, my friend, and like it's
Very. And especially if it's like someone you trusted who's killing a pig thing. That's a way.
oh yeah,
You know, that's,
that has to be like major trauma, you know, major.
It's different if some random person lives there.
Yeah.
It's someone you know, someone you trust.
Well, just coming home and finding your pet pig slaughtered. Must be pretty gnarly. But I was telling Chris when he asked me if I would consider doing the cover, and I read the book, and my grandmother, who grew up on a not very good farm in Wisconsin, and she was a teeny tiny little girl, and her job was to slaughter the hogs. They're mean, and she told me stories of like a tiny little girl that they would always like bump into her and mash her, and she made
All right, so we're just going to read the first chapter of Karen's Closet. I mean, the story goes a lot deeper and gets much more twisted. But basically, this sets the scene. It introduces some of the key players, including briefly Karen herself. She is a young woman of 14, just turning 15, who has been horrendously abused by her father after her mother has died. And I'm not actually going to tell you what happens to her and how she ends up being a ghost, but she does not rest quietly, not at all. So basically this woman, she gets like a sweet real estate deal, and the house that she's buying is haunted, and she has not found that out yet. So This is chapter 1 of Karen's Closet.
So you're reading this?
I'm reading everything that's not in bold.
Okay.
And yours is a bit heavier once we get further into the
Right.
into the body of the text.
Okay.
Okay, so Karen's Closet by Mario Rienzo, chapter 1. The house was one of those stately estates. Isn't that a silly pairing? That many people viewed, but all too few dared to venture. Didn't one need to be invited to such a place? Such stands-on formality meant little to Mr. Rothstein, a good Jewish boy who made good, as was his hyphenated description. Whenever he would meet his good Jewish mother back in the Jew section of Brooklyn, or what was the Jew section of Brooklyn. Times change and people die, after all. Some folks were unable to leave the past lay, but Leonard felt his obligation to break the Jewish chain, you could say. Not to turn his back on his kind or anything, but just so his co-workers in the tremendous vacuum that was the monstrous 60-story high-rise Madison Perry Shostrom real estate wouldn't feel his position there was mandated by his last name. Jews owned, co-owned, will own, or have owned, or sold for a major profit, everything in New York, and sooner or later the world, did they not? Well, I certainly thought so, and Rothstein had enough promotions. Beanies are unsightly, topping off an Italian suit. Italians? Why must the best suits be Italian? Those ethnic half-truths had haunted Larry-turned-adult Leonard for some time. His mother stopped calling him Larry on his 13th birthday, the day he became a man in the thoughts of the family. Chilling to think of it now, his own. So, rather than rally to anyone's particular ethnic cause or related emotional handstand, preferred just to be American Leo, keep it at that. Had anyone called him Leo ever? After all, he had plenty of time to be a suffering Rothstein whenever late December rolled around. Oh yeah, guard down, sweats on, shoes off. Larry wanted to bust that old chain to pieces. Sharon was to visit the house the 12th of March, 10 days away. It was leap year, and the extra day bugged her to no end.
Why? A February 29th, 1996.
Who knows? Why did it bother Miss Langhorn so? Everybody knew the answer to that one. Her roommate Betty, or if you heard Sharon describe her, Beatrice, she wasn't one for affectionate abbreviations, was thinking of having an inner circle vodka straight party, of which she was famous for, to commemorate the dear soon-to-be departing of that strange, distant, uppity girl who helped her pay the rent every month. Sometimes, to her credit, Sharon could cover her if she was short a bit with her half, if one of Betty's freelance projects failed to pay her what she was worth. Again, hours put in notwithstanding, or lack of them.
Who wants to get up in the morning, Sharon?
Which she had to admit was a virtuous trait on her part, Betty had to admit. That wasn't enough to endear her to her fussier half, however, although she did try. Many of her friends tried to be a real confidant, but it was not in Sharon's nature to be forthcoming with too many details. It wasn't that she went out of her way to be a bitch, nothing that contrived. She just didn't trust other women. Sharon would not accept attendance to a party basically in her honor.
Nice shot.
She thought.
Getting drunk 'cause the old maid is going, gone. Ding dong. The witch is dead. Enjoy it, Betty.
Sharon spent the night at David's house. David was an on-again, off-again boyfriend, heavy on the friend part, of Sharon's who tried to help her out with stuff now and then, not expecting her to get the hint or anything. Sharon did not commit. That was okay. He would wait. 12:05 a.m., March 3rd, and counting.
David, why do you think Beatrice is glad I'm moving out?
I don't know if neither of us knows if she's really glad to see you go, Sharon. Why do you do this to yourself?
Oh, David.
She said, rolling her eyes.
You're so blind sometimes. I just know she's jumping up and down doing cartwheels in my honor, instead of throwing a party and stocking up on liquor, which she'll invariably end up polishing off once the working stiffs have gone home to get up early tomorrow. I just wish Miss Freelance Artist would return some of that rent money I put out for her all these months. It's probably in the thousands by now. Geez, I could really use that towards the house right now. Her and her fucking vodka, that bitch. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to curse.
Hey, the cursing I can take, but the yelling I just won't tolerate there, sister.
Sorry. I just feel, I don't know, stressed.
Oh, big surprise there. Do you see yourself? You're screaming in the middle of my living room. Well, all-purpose room anyway. David laughed nervously. Sha, you've got to relax. I'm not good at giving people advice, or at least getting through to you's concerned.
Ha! Then you'd better start pinching your pennies now, brother. You're wasting time mastering its psychology if you can't even talk to a frustrated old maid, much less any worse.
You might just have a point there. Did I say that? That I can't give advice?
Yes, you did.
Well, hey, it's only money.
Then why don't you give me some of it? I've got a big old god-awful house to pay for here. Jesus, what did I do? David, I bought a house. I can't even care for a cat, for Christ's sake.
Ah, yes, the Fluffy incident.
I'm serious, David.
I'm sure Fluffy was serious too. If I wasn't fed for days, I'd start nailing the upholstery. Shit.
David, stop making jokes. I left my apartment to move into Dracula's castle. How can I possibly afford this? Oh, man.
You have to stop looking at things like everything you do is a mistake. Really, you have to calm down. Whenever women come here, the only time I allow screaming is in the bedroom. Right over there, pointing upstairs. He laughs.
I'm so sorry I raised my voice, but sometimes I think everything I do is a mistake. I don't know. I know you're trying to cheer me up, but it's not working.
Well, if you're going to feel that way about yourself, I don't think anything I say could cheer you up.
Does that mean you're going to stop trying, David?
Dr. Price, always on call for the needy, if the price is right.
I guess I'm not being that good a house guest, am I?
Now, let's not get ahead of yourself. You're only staying the night.
Does that mean you don't want me to stay any longer?
Sharon, Beatrice is the actress, not you. You do not do the soft female routine well.
Fuck you, David, and thank you.
Go to sleep, Sharon. Good night. As Sharon tried to fall asleep under David's not as clean as it could be thick foam-lined blanket, one of the bedroom set pieces she helped him pick out when they were going to move in together,
Boy, that went well.
she couldn't help thinking she bit off a little more than her capped teeth could chew.
My mother made me get caps. She was hoping it would improve my chances at the State Fair Teenage Beauty Show. It didn't. And then she blamed me for how much they'd cost. Mother would say, "If your father was around, we wouldn't need to hustle for money like this. Well, you'll have to live with them now. I hope you like them, Sharon. That's your birthday and Christmas present, you know. How am I going to pay for this?"
She jumped up, startled to have uttered the same words her dear mother did when Sharon was 14.
That doesn't necessarily mean I am like her, though. I'm not.
She slid underneath a thick comforter and tried to dismiss any old memories that so plagued her as a young adult.
30? Not so young, huh? Sometimes I wish I was more like Beatrice. She doesn't have these kinds of worries. She doesn't even have a steady income. How can she live with herself? It seems peculiar to me. Quite peculiar indeed. Well, might as well try to get some sleep and stop worrying about other people. Good night, Sharon.
Tossing and turning all night, she wished she had spent the night in her own bed and not seemed so needy to David. In the morning, she shook him out of bed and handed him a fresh squeezed paper cup of orange juice before forcing herself out. She had called a cab, washed her face, went to the bathroom and dressed, treated herself to a pair of toasted white bread from David's cupboard. She heard a car horn beep and said goodbye and thank you to him under her breath. She had things to do and boxes to pack back home, and had to figure out how to tell the boss she needed some time off, 2 weeks at least, to get her affairs in order, which of course meant she was having one of her nervous wreck bouts, as she dubbed them, and had to brace herself and let it pass before accepting her upcoming responsibilities.
Hadn't I always wanted my own house as a little girl? Now I have a goddamn mansion practically, and I don't feel good about it. Not at all. Something wrong with me?
She said suddenly out loud. Excuse me, miss? The driver said nervously. With all the holdups and taxi driver shootings he had heard about lately, he would agree with anyone about anything, just as long as they got out of his cab eventually. And he could tell his wife about what another boring day he had.
Oh, nothing. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk out loud.
That's all right. You can say anything you want. It doesn't bother me. I hear all kinds of stuff. Don't bother me a bit.
Oh, I see.
Sharon felt like he could read her thoughts, that he knew her fears and doubts and pathetic melodramatic build-ups in her mind as soon as she stepped in his cab.
Can't wait till this ride is over. Think I'll have a brandy when I get home. If Beatrice's playmates didn't pilfer all my liquor. My going away party. What a joke. I treat her like a sister and the thanks I get. I'll be happy to be away from her.
She caught the driver's eyeing her through his rearview mirror. Something not right about this one. Not at all. March 3rd, 9 more days. Leonard Rothstein called Sharon Langhorn 5:03 p.m. that night. Since she got home around 11 that morning, she moped around the house the past few days and half-heartedly packed a few small boxes with some small personal items, panties, bras, earrings, winter gloves, anything she could fit snugly. She would do her real packing tomorrow night and the next day. She still wasn't so sure about moving in, but she promised Rothstein she would return his call and give him a definite answer by the 3rd. Here it was, March 3rd, and she had a bad feeling about the place.
Now, Sharon, don't start acting like your mother.
She picked up the phone when he started to leave a message on the machine. Hey, Miss Langhorn, this is Leo Rothstein. I'm calling about your recently acquired property on 1922 Tug Hill Road. I'd like you to please call me at the earliest convenience.
Yes, Mr. Rothstein. It's Sharon. I'm here.
Oh, Miss Langhorn. I wasn't expecting you to... Okay. This is where we stand as far as your credit rating against the bank's loan is concerned.
Oh no, here we go. You're going to bring up the fire thing again.
The dear old lady that owns the property, he said dryly, got wind of your recent dilemma, and the elderly Miss Shifton, a widow, did not seem the sociable or sensible type, and was being quite hard on Leo for a suitable new tenant. He liked Sharon in his way, despite her own peculiar nature. He seemed to know she'd be quite the suitable to take over the old moth trap. In real estate for years, he could smell a fake miles away, and, though the old maid type, seemed a good woman nevertheless. Sharon jumped in when Rothstein paused.
Let me guess, Mr. Rothstein. Good news and bad news, right?
She sounded tired, he could tell. Right you are, Miss Langhorn. Here it is from the horse's mouth. Now, she's not a prize winner, you know, but she's not bad looking at all as all that, Leo chuckled to himself on the other end. She heard about the fire that was started at your previous apartment.
By my previous roommate.
She quickly interjected. I believe you, Miss Langhorn. I deal with lots of folks who get stuff held over their heads like that, and I get many who are, like her, twice shy and never bitten. Why did he use the words like folks and stuff with her? She made him feel comfortable in an unexplainable way. Sorry, I gave you the sad news first. Anyway, I can't say it doesn't make her leery, 'cause she's a leery type of gal. But it won't matter to her if she tells the bank yes and says no to any previous haggling bids on your part. Sharon was steamed. It had been a long day and was yet to be done with it.
In other words, for something my stupid ex-roommate Tracy did, which had no police report filed about it, or went on record, or anything, I have to pay a higher price for the place I couldn't afford at the price I was hoping to pitch. So, I guess I'm swimming in interest payments for a few years and leaving the cat to rot in her own kitty litter. Huh?
That's the way it looks. Yes, can I help? He said weakly, not knowing what he could do or what she could possibly call in as a favor at this point. She was in over her head, but the commission from this concrete and wood fossil would put him on the map at his firm and make his mama crack a wee smile. Maybe.
I'm dreaming here, Rothstein. What should I do? Can't you talk to her? Let me talk to her. She's got to be human.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, he chuckled again. Sharon found his humor droll. Quaint, but droll.
Look, it's been a long day for me, and I have to pack and whatever. Let me give you a call back tomorrow, afternoonish. We'll set up something with meeting shifted. You, me, her, select bits of kitchen cutlery strapped delicately to my person, ready to be released upon the magic word being uttered.
No, Leo shouted, going along pretending to be the elderly woman.
Maybe I won't have to use this. The magic word is bargain, madam. So I say.
You're tired. Call me tomorrow.
Right. Will do. Bye.
Bye.
Well, at least he's on my side,
She
thought. Funny, I don't usually act sarcastic with business contacts.
He struck her as down-to-earth. Jewish. A little stiff, maybe. But that was probably put on to impress, not the real him.
Yeah, he's okay.
She flopped onto the futon couch with teenage abandon, flicking on the TV and changing channels rapidly, just like those guys she knew in college despised so much.
One channel at a time, damn it.
She remembered when she changed the channel normally, BR, before remotes, and told herself she was old.
Why do I do this to myself? I hate to be alone. Damn hot off my latest birthday and I'm depressed.
She shut the TV, lay down on the couch, and stared at the ceiling for a while. Tracy. It had not been for quite a while that she thought of that one.
The part-time stripper.
Her dirty laundry hamper would suggest it was full-time.
Now, it's not nice to speak ill of the brain dead, Sharon.
Yeah, Tracy. Not a bad girl. Bad meaning untrustworthy or sneaky, that is. But couldn't she think of something more original than that cigarette hole in the mattress bit?
I swear I can't get used to anything but this damn futon ever since.
She went out when the mattress did, both out with the proverbial trash. And a new apartment in Beatrice soon followed. The old bag said, or was it Leo, recent dilemma.
Recent? It was 3 damn years ago, bitch. Yep, very long day.
She decided to go to bed early.
What is it, 6?
That was fine by her.
Good night.
In a damp, weathered basement closet, a child sat in a filthy mix of soot, sawdust, animal droppings, and shavings from a rusting tin sheet metal roof, an extension of the shed her father made, where he kept the pigs at night. The house wasn't built on livestock land, and there was not much of a yard at all. But these facts never stopped someone like Daniel Nelson from thinking otherwise. He would tell anyone in the village down the long path of cobblestones and cracked sand-heavy concrete that one day this ramshackle home he built would be a mansion fit for a king. I won't be put down and laughed at much longer. I have big plans in the works for me and my family. I'm telling you, the name Nelson will be famous in these parts. That name would be famous one day, but not in the way he'd have hoped. Karen pressed her head up against the grimy wood walls of the tiny hidden room, too small for some to suspect a child to be there. The neighbors and passers-by never looked behind the shed, and it was a routine Karen had no choice but to get used to. She had heard her mother was killed, murdered by a man who came from over Archtop Hills, a loner who had killed before, byproducts of his illustrious career as a thief, and particularly liked to tease pretty young women. None were ever in danger of sexual assault, however. This, if Karen knew, would in some ironic way honor her unknown mother's manufactured memory and set the two women apart forever. She had hoped in her innocent young mind that the real mother she had never known knew nothing of the sadness she had endured and would continue to endure for years to come on the other side. In church, she was repeatedly told that the dead held court over the living, laughing and lamenting their moral frailties, learning a level of pity and compassion much greater than that they knew when of the flesh. Karen deeply hoped in her beating heart that the headmistress was wrong, and all her aides who smiled and pretended to really care for her while her father sat in the pew upstairs mocking God were wrong as well. For if her departed mother, more a saint to her, to be mentioned in her prayers along with the others now than anything else, knew of her suffering and loneliness she'd felt inside. She hated the thought of it.
The dead are dead and no more. The earthly suffering in life ends swiftly in death. If not, there is no hope for me. I will die soon at the hands of this monster, my father.
She promised herself one day she would escape. The cool, damp dirt between her fingers made a faint sound, and she looked up in a vain attempt to get some fresher air amongst that tinted with manure, as if some invisible wire above her head held the promise of a cleaner world just beyond some short distance, reachable by those bold enough to stand up on their tippy toes and look for it. Or was it more of a smell? The toxic blend of scents in the air permeated the house outside the grim walls of the shed, or Karen's closet, so that even on his good days or in his good moods, she had the good fortune to relive the filthy prison she had learned to get used to and shudder, knowing when the bad moods hit again and the sickness overtook him, she would always return. Once he lived through the sickness she endured with him, which was the way she viewed it when the demon rum, as the sisters called it, took effect, trying ever harder to brace herself for what she knew would come, always the same every time. Sometimes she would go into the closet without being washed off first. That was the worst part. The awful, dirty, worst part. And that's the first chapter of Karen's Closet. I'm not going to go into how deeply and utterly this young girl was violated, but
Read the
this book does not pull punches. You know, that's one of the reasons I knew on his deathbed, it was like 4 days before Mario died, and I promised him that this would be seen. I would do whatever it took to get this book out in front of people.
You're a good friend.
You know, yeah, I mean, a lifelong. He was like found family, to tell you the truth. So you can imagine finding he died in September. You can imagine finding this book, his mom finding this book, handwritten, 2 composition binders, like the kind with a marble cover, all in pencil, all in capital letters, no sentence or line or paragraph breaks. A lot of times 2 lines of text per line of notebook. faded because of partial water damage, and this is 95 95 to 96 we're talking, finding it in 2017, and staying up many times. Like on the weekend I would start in the morning, I would stay up all night and past dawn the following day, just untying the nuts, fixing grammar, transcribing, correcting, editing, and also partially ghostwriting, which is one of the reasons he sounds like such a brilliant writer. I mean,
because of the part that you wrote?
was that?
Because of the part that you wrote?
No, it was more like a synesthesia, basically. But for example, he was a bit of a lazy writer. I had a literature professor who said that one of the marks of a lazy writer is using the word very a lot. It's like, don't say very cold, say frigid. Don't say very bad, say terrible. Mario used the word very 80 times in around 60 pages. And sometimes it was very, very, or very, very, very. And I just had to yank out all the knots. There's a forward that Leslie wrote a forward, I wrote a forward, and Mario's mom wrote a forward. In my forward, one of the things that I said is like, I am not at liberty to discuss how deeply my involvement in this book goes, because every single page I had to interject myself in the narrative dozens of times. And I would say the book is like 300 so pages long. I mean, there have to be up to like 10,000 instances of me tweaking something. I mean, it's his story, it's his... I gotta say, really, it has to be at least... Yeah, it's almost all him, but the way he wrote his sentence structure, his grammar, I just had to render it into a form that people could actually read, and they could appreciate the depth and the weight of the story. Because once you get deep into it, and you realize what this girl had to endure, and the rapport that I'm getting ahead of myself. But it's definitely worth the read, I would have to say. I mean, and that just doesn't come from me, like, knowing him and knowing of Mario for like 40 years, since he was a roomer on the playground. I don't know if I'm sure I probably told you that I first encountered Mario as a roomer. It was 1977, and I was going to PS 81, which is on the borderline of Brooklyn and Queens. And I was in first grade, and I was a weird kid, of course. And I got sort of reputation amongst, like, there was a schoolyard gang or whatnot. There was like a de facto leader of that group or whatnot. And of course, like, news of me passed along to him. And I was talking to this kid. He was like from a grade above me or whatnot. And he said, "There's this one other kid who's like you, but the adults have already started getting to him." And, a lot of times he'll just stalk around the playground with his head down, his fists bunched up, saying over and over, not looking at anyone, but saying over and over, "Very mean, very mean, very mean, very mean," like stomping back and forth in the playground. That was Mario. And later on, I almost encountered him a number of times. I don't know if you know, he was in the school band with my idiot brother, but my brother was pretending to be an only child. He would invite Mario over only when nobody else was home, so he could have him all to himself. Probably because he was afraid that anybody else would steal Mario as a friend. "Hey Mario, you want to come over and watch me finger my recorder?" No thanks. But, and there was a time when I actually, Mario, his mom owns the building. They lived across the street from me. I was at 1737 Grove Street. He was at 1811, less than half a block away. I never knew. I moved all the way down to Flatbush. And I was looking for people for my band, and I put out an ad, he answered it, and I started talking to him. And he sends me the tapes that he'd been listening to before for his group Intelligence Is Bliss. And just out of conversation, it turns out, I started talking about my fucked up child, and it's like, no, is your brother, because the last name was familiar to him, your brother's not named Robert, is he? And
Yes.
yes, and that's how I found out how Brother Deer. I knew that Brother Deer was a nutcase out of the house, out of the apartment as well as in. He would like instigate like things in the class, but never take part in the mayhem. He would just stay in one spot, and every so often he would like pound the desk and make noise and yell, but he would never get up and throw things around like the other kids. But I don't know how deep I should get, but well, Mario once walked into the bathroom and saw my idiot brother giving a blowjob to at least a dozen other older kids.
Guys?
Yeah, guys,
Right.
yeah. And the only thing, the only thing that of course, Mario, who got his name, Mario got his nickname MAJ the Beast because he overheard that one kid was bragging about sodomizing another kid. He was like just bragging about it on the playground. Mario took a bike chain, wrapped it around his fist, and the kid who molested the other kid, Mario beat him half to death.
Oh dear.
It took 5 or 6 other kids to pull, and Mario was still swinging. After that, a couple of days later, people started calling him the Beast. And that's how he became MAJ the Beast. But when Brother Deal was pulling whatever, he looks at Mario, terrified, and he says 3 immortal words. Don't tell teacher. Now why when these other kids were forcing you to give them blowjobs in the boys' room, do you tell another kid not to tell the teacher? Well, I finally told Mario the reason why. Because the other kids had threatened to beat them to a bloody pulp. And my idiot brother figured that was a worse fate than having to suck them off. Anyway, so Mario joined my band, and I realized that as early as 1977 we could have been lifelong friends if he had not been hidden from me. But after that, there's some people who you meet and you just realize you're going to know them until they die.
Which you did.
Which I did. Yeah, that's happened to me a number of times. Shane, the bass player Shane, who dropped out on Avenue A. As soon as I laid eyes on him, I knew I would be his friend until he died.
Well, I have to depart.
Yes.